Welcome to the Functional Medicine Foundation's podcast, where we explore root cause medicine, engage in conversation with functional and integrative medicine experts, and build community with like-minded health seekers. I'm your host, Amber Warren. Let's dig deeper. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. We're here with Dr. Sam Petersen, also known as the Boise Natural Dentist. He's an Idaho native. Whoop, whoop. Both he and his wife were raised in Southeast Idaho. He is passionate about helping his patients achieve whole body health and wellness through biological dentistry and a holistic lifestyle. Dr. Petersen is a lifelong learner and continues to seek out the best continuing education courses available to make sure he is at the cutting edge of dentistry. He has a doctorate in dental medicine and a master's in oral biology. Welcome, Dr. Petersen.
Yeah, thank you.
We're so glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
And it's fun because you're also our neighbor.
Yeah, we're just right around the corner.
Right around the corner. It's awesome. And the name of your practice is?
BioSmiles.
BioSmiles. We love having you here.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Wonderful. So let's start with just defining, I think there's still a lot of people, biological dentistry, natural dentistry, integrative dentistry.
Yeah.
You're in your field of biological dentistry. How is that different from what we understand as just a normal dentist?
Yeah, so I mean, when it really comes down to it is, the way I like to explain it is I try to find cleaner methods, cleaner materials that are really going to help reduce systemic inflammation. At the end of the day, it's still dentistry. Unfortunately, I still have to come at people with a needle. I still have to numb you up. We still remove teeth and do crowns and all that kind of stuff. But there's definitely some nuances to it. Right. But that's a huge part of it is we're just looking for materials and methods that are going to reduce systemic inflammation. A simple example of that would be BPA. BPA is a common ingredient in most dental filling material. It's an endocrine disruptor. It can definitely cause some problems that way, and I use BPA-free composite. Another one that is, potentially controversial, but it's one where I'm like the weird dentist that doesn't use or recommend fluoride. So.
Oh, you just went there.
Yeah, I did. I'm going there. We're just going to go there. But it's that where, I always joke that, when they say that 9 out of 10 dentists approve this toothpaste, I'm the 10th guy saying, no, I don't like it.
You actually don't like it and you're going to pick it apart.
Yeah. So that's one of those examples. And then when it comes to, extractions or different surgeries and stuff, we really kind of try to go above and beyond by way of really decontaminating the socket, cleaning that out. We use things like platelet-rich fibrin in our surgeries and stuff to really improve and optimize healing. So there's a lot of different nuances to it, but that's kind of the easiest way that I find to explain it.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit. It's always so intriguing to hear about people's stories into this profession, into the more naturally minded profession. So what's your story? Yeah.
So, I always feel like most people that I've found anyways that find their way into the natural space, there was an event that kind of shook them out of their apathy, right? And for my story, it's no different. And so for me, it was my oldest daughter was about 4 years old when she was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. And at the same time, that was about the time I was starting dental school. And so we're taking my daughter to the doctor and we're checking things out. And it's like, well, we don't know what causes it. We don't know how to treat it. Here's some, steroid cream. Good luck. So for a vitiligo. So losing pigments, her body's attacking the melanocytes in her skin. And that was the answer. And I was like, wait, what? That's a terrible answer.
You have nothing more to give me.
Yeah, I'm like, that's it. And so during dental school, I was on my commute and stuff. I was listening to tons of different audiobooks on gut health and autoimmune disease and stuff, and really trying to understand what in the world was going on. Yeah. So I kind of had this like interesting education on the side of my traditional dental training while I'm also going through kind of more of the functional autoimmune gut health story. And
questioning everything.
And questioning everything.
What a blessing you were going through your conventional training, questioning everything. Like I almost wish in some aspects I could redo some of my training to where you could question everything. Yeah. At least in your own mind.
Yeah. And there were, and I had plenty of questions, and I've always been somebody who asks questions, and if the answer doesn't seem adequate or good enough, then I keep digging until I get a satisfactory answer. And so during dental school and stuff, it was the same thing when they're talking about, they just hit it so hard, and they have all the research, right, to back it on how safe and effective, Mercury amalgam fillings are, and how great and how wonderful, and all the things, right? And yet, when we got done placing a filling like that, we had to take the scraps and we had to double glove and put those scraps into a container and put those container into another container so that the EPA could come and pick them up and dispose of it. And because it was illegal to put it down the sink.
Right.
And it's illegal to throw it in the garbage because it's toxic.
But you're like, that was in someone's mouth.
But the only legal place for me to put it was actually inside somebody's body. And, I'm just like, hey, wait, I've got a question.
You're not allowed to ask.
Yeah, well,
Sit still, Samuel.
Like, well, and so some of those questions, they did get awkward, but, and I wasn't flippant about it. And I wasn't trying to argue. I was legitimately just trying to learn.
Yeah.
And trying to understand why that was okay, and there's arguments for it and everything else, but at the end of the day, we have better materials, and that's an antiquated science that's, they were invented in the 1830s by some French scientist,
right.
I mean, it's literally almost 200 years later.
It's not like you're going totally rogue and off
right.
the chain.
We've got better things now, guys,
right.
I
have to ask, why do you think there's still so many conventional dentists not using the better materials? Why do you think that only some of you have asked the question? I got to double glove and protect myself from this stuff, but I can put it in people's mouth. I
think a huge part of the population has moved away from the mercury amalgam fillings. And frankly, I find that most of those are, unfortunately, and almost criminally, they're almost limited to low-income clinics, VA, military, Medicaid.
And it's because
clinics,
the mercury fillings are so much cheaper.
They're so much cheaper.
Yeah,
they're
that's
so
the answer
much
for
cheaper.
a lot of reasons, right?
And
why we can't.
Yeah, it's because the reimbursement that the insurances will pay for a mercury amalgam filling are so small.
Yeah.
So it's a cheap material.
Yeah.
And I can't argue with the fact that they last a long time.
Right, they're durable.
They're incredibly durable, and they'll outlast my composites. My composites, when you go toe to toe with a metal versus a resin, the metals are going to be more durable. But aside from the fact they're up to 50% of them is laden with mercury, they're over time they crack and break teeth and stuff. So aside from that, they're great.
But I want to dig into that. A lot of my patients will say, I don't know if I have mercury in my mouth. Mm-hmm. So how do people know if they have mercury fillings?
Yeah, that's a simple exam. Just peeking in their mouth and seeing. We can see if they're cracked, if they're broken, if they're causing those types of issues. A lot of times just the surface stain, you can see if they're leaking.
And the issue is they're leaking mercury into their bloodstream.
Yeah.
And it becomes systemic heavy metal toxicity.
So, and again, it's one of those things, the research will argue, there's some of that says that once it sets up, it doesn't leach anymore, but I've taken thousands of them out, and you always see how much it's really leached into the tooth and how much dark, black staining has leached into the dental tubules. And there's other research too that, it argues that it does leach into the system and can, there's one that talked about retrograde axonal transport. So it's a fancy way of saying traveling backwards up the nerve. Where it would actually travel. They demonstrated this in mice where it would actually travel up the nerve and then the mercury would actually deposit in the brain. Mm-hmm. That's of concern.
Yeah, for good reason, for sure, absolutely. Especially with Alzheimer's and dementia.
Maybe
and prediabetes.
Maybe.
So when we're talking about, and this, correct me if I'm wrong, but when I approach my patients, because we're always looking at oral health, I talk about mercury amalgams kind of like I do root canals. It's not necessarily that it might be an issue now. It's not necessarily an issue of if, it's when it becomes a problem.
Right.
It might not be an issue now, but at some point it will impact your health in your lifetime. So it's probably a good idea to take care of it now while you're younger.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where it gets tricky. It gets tricky because as far as just, I guess I'm sidestepping a little bit here just with the legalese of it and stuff. So one of the things I always go back to is it was in 2018, the American Dental Association updated their code of ethics. Okay. And in that update, they included an update that said that if a dentist recommends that you remove your mercury amalgam fillings just because there's mercury in them, that's considered unethical overtreatment. Okay.
This is not that long ago. This is 6
right. This
years
is
ago.
2018. So it's one of those things, right? If there's cracking, if there's
Yeah.
breaking, if there's leaking, if there's obvious decay and stuff, then I can recommend that you take those out. And we take them out under a safe amalgam removal protocol where we barrier the patient up from head to toe. We've got a rubber dam on. They've got forced oxygen with a nasal cannula. We've got a mercury grade filter that goes right in their mouth, in front of their mouth, to help pull the mercury vapor away from them and from me. We wear disposable gowns and hairnets and mercury grade masks and all that to keep us safe, right? But the fact is I can't recommend that it's like, oh, you have mercury fillings, you need to take those out. I can't say that.
So what do you say?
Well, yeah, I just let them know that it's there's a potential issue right now. There's still such a thing as cosmetic procedure.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's the other funny thing about it, right? It's unethical for me to take it out because there's a toxin in it.
Right.
But if you don't like the way it looks, well, that's totally fine.
Yeah. Then let's get it out.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild?
And so that's kind of what it becomes is
you have to play the game.
If you want to take it out for cosmetic reasons, we can do that.
We'll take it out.
And
replace it with a nice, pretty
we'll
white
make it nice
composite.
and pretty.
And so similar, let's talk about some of the issues with root canals.
Yeah.
One, how do people know they have a root canal? That's a little bit harder to just look in the mouth and see.
Yeah, correct. And so, one, hopefully the patient...
Hopefully they know. That's
hopefully
true.
They know. Sometimes they don't.
But if it's
sometimes they have no idea.
Yeah. Root canal.
And because, right, they just, I don't know, I just did what my dentist told me, and he said I needed it, so this is what I got, right? So root canals are also another interesting animal. And... call me old-fashioned, but I still believe in informed consent. Okay.
I love that. Great.
But
you're so boring and conservative.
so when I explain, I'm very big on just explaining the risks and benefits of what root canals really are. And once the structure of the natural tooth has been compromised, anything we do after that is below what God gave you in the first place, right? And so there's risks and benefits and limitations to everything we do after that, and so and it's one of those things too. I don't want to I definitely don't want to demonize anybody who still does root canals. I still feel like they have a place.
Do you?
I do.
Good. Yeah.
I do. And especially in kids and stuff, right? And this may be weird for a biologic dentist to argue that. Some of my biologic counterparts might be like, hey, what is he talking about? But I still just feel like there's a time and place for everything. And I try not to get too dogmatic about any of it.
Right.
But with root canals, the real benefit, right? And so this is me arguing for them, okay? The real benefit is kind of threefold. The first is that if a tooth was hurting, it gets you out of pain.
Right, that's true.
Okay. It's a morbid statistic, but back in the 1800s, one of the leading causes of suicide was tooth pain.
No way.
Okay, so if it's between you getting a root canal and you clocking out for good,
because of chronic pain,
because of acute pain, then for crying out loud, get the root canal.
Right. That's a good point.
And sometimes we take that for granted in our modern world, right? But it gets you out of pain. One of them is it helps preserve the bone. And this is one where a lot of people don't understand this. They're like, even in my world, they're like, I don't want the tooth, I want to get it out. And it's like, well, you need to understand what's going to happen. If you take that tooth out, over time the bone is going to atrophy because there's no longer a tooth working out the bone stuff. So a root canal actually helps preserve the bone. The other thing it does, it gives you something to function with and chew with and smile with, right? And when we talk about whole health, sometimes we might forget about our psychosocial health and our ability to smile and how impactful that really can be. So those are the real big benefits, and they're worth considering. But on the downside, what root canals are, at their base level, root canals are sources of chronic inflammation. Right. Period.
Because of why? What's going on in a root canal that makes it a source?
It's one of those things where teeth are. When they're alive, they're porous. There's all these tiny little microtubules and channels and stuff where there's actually a lymphatic fluid, dental lymph, that's pushing through the tooth and help detoxing it, keeping it clean. And when a tooth dies, you lose that, and you can seal off the major channels with the root canal, and they are improving, but it's impossible for them to seal off every tiny little microscopic tube. Right. And those tubes are still big enough for microbes to get in. And so you end up with kind of a microbial-laden sponge of a tooth that now every time you chew, that microbial-laden sponge is being squished into the bone, and there's microbes that are causing inflammation.
Right.
One of the big ones, too, as far as cardiovascular health and some of the biomarkers that my functional folks pick up on is myeloperoxidase. And that's significantly inflammatory, especially when it comes to cardiovascular health. And that is almost always present in recurrent infections in root canal teeth.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea.
Yeah, so
That's
if you see an elevated biomarker of
we see elevated MPOs
myeloperoxidase,
very often.
they need to be sent over for a CBCT to make sure that they don't have a reinfected root canal tooth.
So not all root canals are bad. Some stay controlled and don't actually cause inflammation.
Yeah, I would say that all of them cause inflammation, but it's one of those things, like I said, on their best day, even if it's not reinfected, it's still a source of chronic inflammation.
But they're not all acutely infected.
They're not all acutely infected. At some point, they tend to go that way at some point.
Right.
Now there's always the anomaly out there. They say that there's somebody who can smoke 2 packs a day for 40 years and they don't get lung cancer, and for whatever reason, their body's just really good at detoxing. And then there's other people that, having a root canal, it can really throw their body over the edge as far as what their threshold for inflammation is and what their body can handle.
Right. Yeah, you want to put out all those little fires. So I feel like we're always talking about this term gut microbiome, and we don't enough talk about the oral microbiome and the importance of it. So can you shed some insight on the oral microbiome and why we should care?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that, the tube is all connected.
Right.
So
the tube is all connected. I love that. I have never heard that, but that's so great.
But that's what it is, right?
It's so true.
And every time we swallow, we are seeding our gut with billions and billions of microbes. And so if there is a complete oral dysbiosis going on, it can really permeate the gut. It can permeate the bone. It can permeate the bloodstream and stuff, right? I mean, if it's kind of like one of the fastest ways for people to absorb medication is by placing it under their tongue. Absolutely. Right. Well, sublingually. You've got all these bacteria in your mouth as well. That's their playground too, and all that vasculature. They can burrow through and get through and right into our bloodstream and can cause issues elsewhere systemically. So when the mouth is off, there's a good chance that things are off elsewhere. Yeah. So what are some really easy ways at home people can help to balance the oral microbiome? Yeah, I mean, honestly, really, when you get down to like the nitty gritty, the nuts and bolts of it all, oral health and systemic health are the same. Yeah, I agree. So intricately connected. They are 100% the same. Yeah. And, sometimes it can be one versus the other, where sometimes we'll see dysbiosis in the mouth, we'll see cavities in the mouth, we'll see different issues in the mouth that are actually a symptom of other issues that are happening systemically. And you get that tweaked and dialed in, and the issues in the mouth go away. You're talking like malnutrition, poor nutrient levels, poor micronutrient levels. Hormones can play a huge role in that, and so, that can be seen with, the times when women are the most susceptible to oral health issues is going to be puberty, pregnancy, and menopause. So cool. And it has, but it's like, well, what am I doing? I've been doing everything right. I've still been flossing and brushing, and I've still been doing, but now I have XYZ problems. And it's like, well, it's not here. Yeah. You have to look elsewhere. It's there. You've got hormonal imbalances that are contributing to it. But what's the mechanism there? Like in menopause, I can assume it's like low antioxidant levels or being less insulin sensitive. But what's that mechanism in puberty and adolescence? Just an imbalance in the body, which a lot of it is estrogen and progesterone. Yeah. And without all my like notes and stuff, I wouldn't be able to go into all the detail. No, I could see that though, just in like an estrogen dominant state, even like PCOS or issues like that. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. So cool. So sometimes, it can definitely be sourced in the mouth, but sometimes there's issues elsewhere that are contributing to the mouth and vice versa. That's what I'm saying, where it's just inextricably connected. And if you get your whole health in order, your oral health is going to come in line.
And
too.
vice versa, right? You
Right.
get your oral microbiome in order. That's going to do wonderful things.
It's going to help.
Cardiovascular
It's definitely,
system.
it's definitely going to help. And especially if you are eliminating some of these chronic sources of inflammation, right? If you're eliminating, or ideally preventing, right? Preventing the need for a root canal. If you don't have big, nasty cavities, you don't need root canals. And then you don't need implants, and you don't need all of this other expensive
and then you save
stuff.
a lot of money.
You
said
a ton of money.
Yeah.
It's very expensive.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of a funny place to be in, because like I work every day trying to put myself out of business.
Yeah, I know. You don't want to see your clients coming back.
I want them to be healthy. I want them to like
Stay
never
away.
have the issue again.
Us too.
But that's, it. So really what it comes down to is whole health, nutrition, prevention. And beyond that, everything else after that is, it's a hack. It's a cheat. It's a, Band-Aid of sorts, but we can help and we can mitigate and we can do, but, there's going to be limitations if the patient themselves aren't willing to change certain habits and
So what are those
lifestyles.
habits? As a dentist, what are those habits that you need to do?
Yeah. The biggest obvious, I feel like is the biggest obvious elephant in the room is sugar.
Yeah.
Carbohydrates,
Yeah.
processed foods, but, and sugar in all of its forms.
Right. The goldfish crackers that turn to sugar.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That damage your teeth.
But it's everywhere and it's pervasive, and we're about to kick off sugar season, right?
For sure.
It's coming. And so October 31st kicks off sugar season, and it's no longer just Halloween, right?
But it's not even the 31st. It's the parties and the events that start happening 3 weeks before Halloween starts.
Right. Before it. And then after that, we've got Thanksgiving, and it's not Thanksgiving without all the pie. And then it's Christmas. And now it's like, it extends beyond that. Now everybody gets treats and stuff for like Valentine's and St. Patrick's Day.
It's like half the year.
And then Easter, so we've got 6 months of sugar season. And it's just devastating. It's devastating to whole health, and it's completely devastating to the oral microbiome of the mouth, and to your oral health.
Yeah.
So
cut sugar, cut processed foods, eat real food that comes from the ground.
eat real food that comes from the ground, and I can't emphasize the healthy proteins and stuff enough as well. And that's one of the things that's interesting too, is when it comes to actually, like, people talk a lot about remineralization, and even in the holistic world now, it's like the hydroxyapatite, and it's still applying something external to the tooth in hopes that it's going to remineralize it. And that there's a benefit, but the vast majority of remineralization happens from the inside.
So you're talking root cause.
Yeah, well, and what's interesting is how teeth remineralize, right? They have to have the mineral from your diet. They have to be able to absorb it. But then there's actually a cell, and this gets into the nerdy science for a second, but there's a cell called an odontoblast.
Okay.
And that's what lays down the dentin. And your body is built to repair the dentin from time to time. Just like other cells, it gets old and it wears out and stuff. And so your body differentiates these cells and sends them out to make new dentin. And first, they have to lay down a collagen matrix before they start applying mineral to it. But in order to form the collagen matrix, they need protein. They need protein.
Amino acids, those are the building blocks of all cells. Protein,
But I see it. And I catch flack for this from time to time, but it's one of those things where I see in diets who are strictly vegetarian, strictly vegan, some of the Ayurvedic types where there's benefit, there's good things in all of those diets, but the lack of healthy fats and proteins, man, it sure impacts oral health in a big way. And sometimes it's not seen immediately. I feel like most of the times it's patients who have lived that lifestyle for upwards of 10 to 11 years.
Yeah.
And after that,
then it starts to
I see a ton of cavities. And they're like, well, I eat clean. I'm eating clean. And maybe you are, but you're not giving your body what it needs to rebuild itself.
Or maybe there's a gut microbiome issue, malabsorption issue.
There certainly could be.
Where you're not absorbing fats or proteins like you should because so many of our guts are so disturbed. So it can.
100%. Because that's one of those other big, the multifaceted issues, right? Where if your teeth aren't getting enough mineral, It's either not there in the diet or it's in the diet, but you're not absorbing it. If you're
Are
not
you
absorbing
doing
it.
any like mineral testing, micronutrient testing in your clinic to look at some of the building blocks that you need for a
Not
healthy?
yet, no. And it's one of those things too where it does get tricky, and that, I mean, this is where I need to have important relationships with folks like you, because
totally.
And at the same time, I got to stay in my lane. You know, even though it is my lane, because we're talking about the oral health and stuff, but you know, but some of that, it starts overlapping.
The lines can get a little blurry. I could see that.
When you determine that oral health and systemic health are the same thing, then the lines can get blurred. But I still need to, you know, try and stay in my lane. And then that's why forming relationships with
It's so important. Yeah, all of us practitioners, we have to just always keep in good communication and stay in touch. And I just so value being able to send patients literally around the street to go see you because I'm hands off on all that stuff. Like, go see my friend, Dr. Petersen. Are you looking for high-quality supplements? FunMedShop.com is carefully curated by the wellness experts at Functional Medicine of Idaho. You'll find high-quality supplements to support your health and optimize your body's natural functions. Rooted in responsible sourcing and utmost commitment to purity ensures that you're getting products that are not only effective, but also safe and reliable. Plus, you'll find our own line, Functional Medicine Foundations, which is carefully formulated using the best ingredients available so you can trust that you're giving the body the support it needs. Visit funmedshop.com today and take the next step in your health journey. That's funmedshop.com.
Right.
So fluoride, we have to touch on fluoride because I feel like it's at least I see it social media and in some of our discussions, presentations, conferences we attend. There's a lot of talk on fluoride right now. So what's the concern? Why should parents and adults alike be aware?
Yeah. And again, this is one of those things where it's been controversial from the beginning.
Yeah.
And some people don't know that.
Yeah.
Some people, even like in my world, right? My dental companions, you know, they, the dental schools taught us, and here's the research, and it's great, and it's good, and it's wonderful, and it's the best thing ever, right? It's still hailed as the biggest achievement in oral health in the 21st century.
Is it
right?
really?
100%. And yet some of my counterparts don't know or haven't bothered to look at some of the controversy from its inception, which is also very interesting. But it was largely water fluoridation started with it was kind of during the war effort and stuff, where there's the DuPonts and the big chemical companies of the time were they had a bunch of toxic waste products, and fluoride was in that, and it was very difficult and very expensive for them to get rid of it. And there was some town that they found that was like, you know, they had a higher level of fluoride in their water, and they saw that they had a lower level of cavities, and they were like, okay, here we go, right? Well, they literally hired the author. Have you heard of the book Propaganda?
Yes.
So it's considered one of the most 100 influential books of the last century. But they literally hired the author of the book Propaganda, Edward Bernays, to come in and spearhead the marketing effort to get the American people to accept it as a good thing. Because even back then, they were very concerned that it was not going to be healthy, right? And it's also very telling to go back and look at the old fluoride commercials and to hear the verbiage that they use.
And what year is this again?
This is like in the 1940s.
Okay, 1940s. You know. Okay,
but
like World War II. You said that. You said that the war.
Yeah. You know, so the verbiage on the commercials. You want to know what they said? You could probably guess it. It's very safe and effective. Of course, it's very safe and effective.
Like what they call Roundup right now.
You know, but that was it's still what's utilized in their campaigns to this day, that it's very safe and effective. And fluoride, it's aside from it being a known neurotoxin. I mean, there was just another. I mean, there's been studies like this coming out for the last 20 years that statistically significant differences in IQ levels in children who have, you know, consumed fluoride. But it's like, oh, well, it's, you know, it's at higher amounts, or that's not an American study, so it doesn't count, you know, or whatever things we use to justify it, right? But just a few weeks ago, there was a big meta-analysis published in the United States showing a statistically significant difference between IQ levels in children. Right? I mean, this is the difference between, it could honestly be the difference between your kid being an engineer and your kid being a janitor. And it's like, okay, well, great. Well, the janitor has less cavities, but it's like, well, yeah, okay. But like, would you risk,
Right.
would you risk a couple cavities
For your brain?
for a life that could be completely different?
Right.
You know, I mean, it's, to me, that's just kind of insane.
So I have so many questions. Who's these are things I've never thought of, honestly, with regards to fluoride. Who's benefiting? Like Big Pharma, I go no further. We know who benefits there. You can follow the
Sure.
money, but like who's benefiting is from fluoride?
Yeah.
Is there a significant markup there? Like
There is, and that's another thing where it's potentially awkward and could get people mad at me. But it's one of those things where like, you know, I know for some dentists, just the fluoride applications, right? You come in and you get your topical fluoride application and stuff, and it's $25, and your insurance covers it. It's no fee to you or whatever, right? Well,
and it takes 30 seconds. So $25.
It takes 30 seconds. And it's like, yeah, I mean, it bills out at whatever it is, 25, 50, you know, $75 a pop,
Okay.
you know. And so it certainly can impact a dentist's bottom line,
Okay.
for sure.
Okay.
And stuff. So, and nobody likes the status quo disrupted.
That is a good point. That is a good point. You still have a business to run, and you're going to upset that because it's a
I mean, all of a sudden you pull the plug on that, then what?
It's
what
almost been around
alternative
for
do you
100
have?
years.
Yeah, you know, and it's the same thing where the vast majority of people are still using it, recommending it, and so still at this moment in time, you know, you're the odd duck for going, you know, upstream, but I'm telling you, the tide is shifting.
Yeah, I agree.
In a big way. And even this, there was a federal judge shortly after that meta-analysis was published. There's been this long fight with fluoride going on over the last year and a legal battle. And there was a federal judge just a couple weeks ago that ruled that the EPA needs to change what they consider to be safe and effective doses.
Good.
Because at their current levels, they are proving to be toxic and...
But current levels and safe and effective used in dental offices? What about with like what's in our drinking
That's
water?
what I'm talking about. I'm actually talking about the drinking water.
Okay, you're talking about drinking water.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You know?
So are you recommending people get like reverse osmosis filters, whole house filtration? Like just because
and I recommend the reverse osmosis. But that can actually cause the water to be a bit more acidic,
Right.
and stuff. And so adding trace minerals back into the water so that it brings the pH back up and doesn't strip everything of the minerals. So that's definitely the better way to go.
What kind of remineralization do you like? Like, is there a brand you like, or how are you doing that in your home?
No, I mean, I guess I don't have a brand at the moment, but a good trace mineral and stuff. And
just
again,
any good generic trace mineral. I would agree.
But that to me is a better source of viable drinking water.
Okay. I'm so curious to share with our audience and our community, what are some of the cool, I know you do a lot of really cool testing in your clinic that you definitely would never see if you walk into a conventional. So
Sure.
what can people expect if they were to go into your clinic for just a generic checkup, cleaning?
Yeah. So with our new patient exams, you know, really starting in January, there's a number of things that will be slightly different than what we've been doing,
Okay.
and some of it remain the same. But the biggest things is one, we're going to be doing cone beam CTs on everybody and stuff, so that
Oh
we
my
can.
gosh, I actually love that.
Yeah, because we've been there. We missed too many silent infections, too many little hidden root canal infections, things like that. So we're going to be taking CTs on everybody. In addition to that, we're going to be doing biocompatibility testing on every new patient.
Okay, tell our listeners what that is.
Yeah. So, I mean, biocompatibility is incredibly important just because we need to make sure that what we're putting in your mouth is something that your body's going to agree with. Sometimes people might have a tooth that goes hot after it being worked on. It's sensitive, and it wasn't close to the nerve, and we got all the decay out and all that stuff, but the tooth is still causing a lot of pain. They could be having an allergic reaction.
How interesting.
And if you take that tooth or that material out and swap it out with a different one,
Calms down.
the tooth can calm down. So we're actually going to be doing biocompatibility testing on every one of our patients. And that'll take the form of either blood testing for some folks, and others, it will be through bioresonance scanning.
Cool.
Which is very interesting. And then two other tests that we do is we are doing oral DNA testing on everybody through Bristle Health, and so we'll get a real look at the oral microbiome, the ratios as far as what's there, what's present. And so we can really tweak our
So you're looking
recommendations
for
beyond that.
kind of like what we do in the gut, a low sense of the good beneficial bacteria, but also too much of a bad thing.
Correct.
Whether it be bacteria, funguses, viruses, parasites, I would assume.
Yeah. So with the
things.
parasites, so the Bristle Health, I know they don't cover parasites yet, but I've been pushing them to cover it.
Cool.
And then we screen for, we see parasites and stuff on our microscope slides. So that's the other thing we utilize is phase contrast microscopy. And we take samples from underneath people's gums and we put it on a slide and we're able to see it in real time. And we can see the bacteria moving around. And we can see, oftentimes we see little parasites that are also causing problems in the gums. And so we're able to, address that as well, which is always...
You treat it right there in your clinic.
So
I know you guys
we
are
have some treatments, so we have some modalities to treat it locally in the mouth. But again, if we're seeing, a lot of, the most common are amoebas and stuff. And if we're seeing a lot of that in the mouth, well, then actually talking about potentially doing some systemic parasite cleansing and stuff, is definitely in the conversation. And some people, they're well-versed in it. And they're like, oh, yeah, I figured.
I'm on it,
Yeah, and they're like, I got this. I've been through a million of them. Yeah, I'm on it. And other people, they're like, hey, this is new to me. And I'm like, go see my friend Amber.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm not going to quarterback a full systemic parasite cleanse.
You don't need people calling you on the weekends that are having diarrhea reactions to the,
you know what I'm like,
the first step of the parasite cleansing. You don't want that. Yeah.
No.
Well, and a lot of people can't just get thrown into a parasite cleanse. And that's some of my worry too, is that people start, there's so much knowledge available at our fingertips. And I have friends sending me, social media influencers all the time that try to parasite cleanse or tried this and had this amazing response. And I'm like, you have to start at ground zero.
Right.
Is your lymphatic system working? Is your gut working?
Are
you
healthy
constipated?
enough to cleanse?
What is your level of health, inflammation, your ability to detox before you try and rid your body of something that doesn't belong there? Like you have to start with step one, or else you're going to make yourself really sick, and you can do more harm than good if you're trying to work through this on your own. So it does become a little touch and go there.
One of the things too that I think is worth noting is from my understanding and from everything I've read to this point, some of those, and I would assume it's the same in your world, that parasites, at least in the mouth, are generally a secondary infection.
For sure. It's hardly ever root cause.
Yeah.
And if you don't clean the gut after you do the parasite cleanse, you're going to end up right back where you were 3 months later.
And so it's really to get back to the diet and that where it's like the carbohydrates are feeding the bad bacteria that produce acids, and those acids damage the tissue, and that damaged tissue is then eaten by candida and parasites. And so they're really the cleanup crew.
Yeah.
That come in.
That's a really good way to put it in the mouth.
But if there's too much dead tissue, right, then they're going to proliferate and they're going to set up shop, and then they start causing their own level of issues and toxicity. And so sometimes I feel like it's like, oh, look, this is crazy. Look at this parasite. We got to kill the parasite.
Yeah, you focus so much on that,
But if we don't address what caused the environment to be, to be a good host for the parasites themselves, right? We got to back up another notch and address, I always kind of go back to like a soil example where it's like you've got weeds growing, and it's like what made this soil a good landing ground for those types of seeds versus really cultivating the soil and making it a good place for good, healthy,
always coming back to
food
basics.
to grow.
And I would assume that within the mouth and oral health, it's so similar to the rest of the body, the fight and flight, the nervous system, like your cells can't heal, you're not sleeping. I mean, you talking about the life cycle of it, not dendrite, that's
the odontoblast.
Odontoblast, like I'm just thinking like all the things we need for our cells to heal and regenerate and repair, and for the senescent cells to get killed off and die. Like it's the same thing in the mouth as it is the rest of the body.
Right.
You have to sleep, you have to feed it well, fuel it well, 100%. You have to calm down. You have to get away from the blue light and get some natural light. And it really is all the same, and it just all comes back to balance. When the body's not in a state of balance, no part of that body's happy.
Right. So and
true.
when the body's out of balance, that's oftentimes teeth are a canary in the coal mine that are letting us know that something is out of balance elsewhere.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. So gold. Anything else you want to share with our listeners? Just what you guys are offering, what you're doing. Because I feel strongly that you're disrupting you and a small handful of others in this valley are really disrupting what we think of as conventional dental care. And I'm so thankful. Anything else you're doing in your clinic or anything else that's to come or you're learning that you really feel like can bring value?
Yeah. I mean, so some of the other stuff, there's a few things that are coming. I'm actually in the middle of developing my own tooth powder and my own toothpaste. So that's actually coming.
Okay, send us some samples.
Yeah, I will.
Wow, that's so exciting.
So that's in the works, which will be great when that comes out. There's some work that I'm some of it, it's a little bit under wraps, I guess, but I'm kind of working with some ends on the nutrition side to make sure we've got some good.
That crossed my mind when you were talking. I'm like, gosh,
Yeah.
Dr. Petersen, to have a nutritionist in-house so your clients can get the help they need. Because I mean, we do cash pay services here and we have insurance, but we're booked out. And so for you to have that, if we're really trying to change habits and educate people, for you to have somebody in-house that can educate your clients, that's huge.
Huge. So that's a big piece that I'm working on. So that's coming.
Great.
And then part of the product team up and stuff is also with another microbiologist that I've been working with. So there's a number of things in the pipeline and stuff, but otherwise, like I said, we're looking for oral causes to systemic inflammation and trying to calm things down. But we try to do the best we can with what we got and what knowledge we have. We're constantly trying to learn and get better at what we do. Anybody listening out there, we'd love to have you as a patient. And
BioSmiles, and I love you share some really good tips and tricks on your Instagram and social media, and your team does a great job with your social media too. So is it just what's your social media?
It's the Boise Natural Dentist.
That's right, Boise Natural Dentist. Yeah, cool. So go follow Dr. Petersen. He does some really good stuff. Thank you for this discussion. This is so valuable. You're such a valuable colleague and partner to have in this community of just naturally minded individuals to help people on their journey. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Amber. Thank you.
Thanks
for having me.
Thanks. Thank you for listening to the Functional Medicine Foundation's podcast. For more information on topics covered today, specialties available at the FMI Center for Optimal Health, and the highest quality of supplements and more, go to funmedfoundations.com.